This episode is sponsored by Clark's Corvair Parts. Welcome to Steel Beam Rally Team, I'm Tyler. This is the rear cover for the Corvair engine, and we are going to clean this thing up today and put it together as far as we can with the parts we have. The first thing I want to do is try to polish it a little bit. It looks really gross. I put it through the ultrasonic cleaner a few times with purple power. It didn't do a whole lot. So we're going to try a little thing called aluminum brightener first. Aluminum brightener is a Napa product. It is meant for open pore, P-O-R-E, cast aluminum wheels. People use it on pontoon boats and stuff like that. So you cannot use it if the aluminum has been polished already. I don't think this has been polished. So we're going to give it a little shot here. I'm going to go outside and spray a little test section. And we're supposed to take this and spray it on, let it sit for 20 or 30 seconds, and then rinse it off with water. So see if it does anything. It took something off. I'm going to try it again. Ooh, looky there. A little water on it. Right over the camera. I gotta say I'm pretty happy with how that aluminum brightener brightened that aluminum up. So I'm going to continue on with the SOS pad and the aluminum brightener, try to get that in a good spot, and we'll come in for a later polishing if it needs it. Well, I've been using a combination of the old rag and the Dremel, and it's coming along pretty well. The next thing that I want to do here is, before I finish up that polishing, I want to take these little casting marks, these little flashing parts where the different parts of the mold came together, and just kind of clean those up because they kind of stick out. They rip out the polishing pad and they just don't look very good. I've also noticed that the surface quality of the casting is pretty rough, and I didn't expect that. You can see that kind of stuff on the head and block too, but I'm just wondering if any of you have a Porsche from the early 60s or late 50s. Was that common across the industry, or is that just a Chevrolet thing? So if you know, just shoot me a comment. Well, there we are. I think it looks pretty good. About as far as I'm going to go. You can see at least I cleaned up the flashing down here, and then I had a little another one up here and here. So that looks fine. I'm not going to worry about it. Mirror finish is not the goal. Getting it looking decent so we can put it back on is the goal. I want to check out what this is. Looks like some kind of, it's on the oil filter housing. I think it's some kind of pickup screen for the oil. What are you doing out here?
Working on the pour 15 process. This is metal prep. I've already degreased. Now it's metal prep for half hour. And then pour 15.
How is the rust under here? It's a Minnesota bed, right?
She was a little rusty.
Got to replace the
Had a little pad, a couple pads that were a little rust jacked. Had to replace.
Very nice. Well, hope it goes well for you. Usually you guys aren't too concerned with the GMT 400, but somebody asked about it, so I figured I'd give you an update. I did some research on this, so you don't have to. This is an oil filter and oil cooler bypass valve. Basically, when the engine starts up, the oil is thicker, and when the oil pressure differential, meaning the oil is thicker and it can't push through as easily, when the pressure differential is over about 7 psi, the oil bypass valve will allow the oil flow to go from the oil pump, bypass the filter, bypass the oil cooler, and go straight into the engine. So that allows you to get better oil pressure to the bearings before the oil is warm. So once the oil warms up a little bit after a couple minutes, the bypass valve will allow the oil to go its normal route through the filter and through the cooler and start doing those things. So they're about $16 on Clark's. I'll put a little QR code here so you can check it out if you need to. I'm going to order one, but in the meantime, I'm going to take this one out. So that really is just a little disc in there on a spring. Easy. We'll get a new one. Next thing to do is the oil pump. Now, since I want to be Enjoying this for years to come and driving it pretty hard sometimes. I got a high capacity oil pump from Clark's, part number. So this, actually the stock oil pump is supposed to basically sit flat like that. The high capacity one has a spacer in there, so essentially the gears that go into the pump are a little bit taller, and they allow, of course, taller gears mean more overall fluid displaced. Of course, we already had this off the engine, we already had the distributor out, we have the oil pump out, all of it's removed, so we're going to focus on the installation here. The one thing that we need to push out here is the idler shaft. The oil pump has two gears. One of them has a flathead screwdriver looking thing in here. The distributor comes down through this hole and turns that flathead looking thing. So this is the driven gear. The driven gear also pushes the idler gear, and that kind of just sits on a dowel. So what we have to do now is get this idler gear shaft out of here. We're going to heat this up. It says about 250 to 300 degrees. I don't have any way to measure that, so we're just gonna heat it up until I can punch it out with a drift here, and hopefully I can keep the housing warm enough that I can pop this thing in afterward. Let's try it. Working. Oh. I think we're gonna have to do a change of plans here. I first tried to shove the shaft in from the top, and I think that was the wrong decision. I think it wants to come in from the bottom. Oh fuck. Very, very fun. Nice. I don't think I went too far in, but that makes me really nervous. So now what we want to do is put that in. Got it? How far does it need to go? Perfect. Okay, that's 1/8 of an inch. That was the most nerve-wracking thing I've done in a while. Next thing to do here is to open up this little hole here, and there's a little piston in there for the oil pressure bypass valve, and that piston is not supposed to be in there, so I cannot be drilling through that. We got to pop it out this end here, and we'll go with that. So basically what this does is, if the let's say, for instance, someone installs a super high capacity oil pump for no reason and has a stock oil cooler like me. So that would allow the pressure to come through here. At the output of the oil pump, it'll pump oil through here. If there's too much oil there being pumped out to flow through the engine, it will bypass, push that little piston in with a spring, and it'll allow the oil to return back to the oil pump and just do kind of a loop there. So there's no real downside of that right now. The upside is to do it now while I have this on the bench, and I don't have to take this off again to do an oil pump later, if and when I do decide to put an external oil cooler on it. There we go. Now we can see our hole here. This is the hole that allows oil to come from the output of the pump through here, past the valve, and back into the oil pump in here. So the problem with it is that from the factory it's smaller than the diameter of the hole here through the valve. So what we want to do is open this up to, it's saying 3/8 inch, and that'll allow us to have the full volume of oil come through here and through there, return to the oil pump. To drill this thing, I really wanted some good control because it is a kind of a delicate situation here. So I tried my egg beater drill. The bit, 3/8 bit won't fit in here. So Unfortunately, that's out. By the way, if you get one of these, get one with 2 idler wheels, because this one's kind of wacky. Got this one from Sears years ago. But I looked for my brace, my drilling brace. It's like a speed wrench, but it has drill bits, and can't find that either. So I guess we're going to have to go electric here. I didn't want to because it turns it a little bit fast, and you don't get that feedback if you're catching on something. But we'll go for it. I want to be careful that the drill bit doesn't eat too much into the wall of that piece, and mostly eats into the bottom as we drill down. So we'll see how that goes. Gonna give it a shot. I think I'm gonna call that a day. What is that flashing? What the hell is that? Oh, there you go. I'm not sure what else I can do to clean this thing up. I think it's got as much debris out of it as I can possibly get out of it. Next, we want to make sure that the little gears do not rub the sides of the spacer when they're installed. So we were going to put a piece of Scotch tape over 5 of these gears. Now we can shove these things in. We want to keep the Scotch tape away from the gear mesh. So if our gear mesh is in the middle, our Scotch tape is on the outside. Like that. The kit comes with 4 gaskets. My own caliper measured a little bit less than what they're supposed to be. So this measured 1, this measured 3, and this measured 6. But that might be just because it's compressing it a little bit more. So we're going to go with this. It shows that we have a 3, a 5, and an 8. So we will take the 5 here. And we were supposed to install the 5-over gasket on the gear set. There we go. I want to make sure that spacer is going over the Scotch tape. Oh boy. Now we're supposed to torque this spacer down with 2 1/4 by inch long bolts. Unfortunately, the final assembly bolts that come in the kit are 1.5 inches long, and I don't have any inch long 1/4 bolts laying around, so I'll have to go get those and come back tomorrow. Golly gee gosh darn, we're back. We got the 1-inch bolts. Let's throw them in. Since we have this in place and we know that our Scotch tape is giving us a clearance around the gears, from the gears to the spacer, we need to find a way to keep the spacer in place when we have to take the gears off, pull the tape out, and then put the gears back in and put the end cover on. So the way we do that, it appears, is that we have to drill out here and here to allow us to install roll pins through the spacer and into the rear cover itself. Got a 3/32 inch drill bit here. It's marked off at 3/4 inch because the roll pins are 5/8 inch. So we want to make sure we have that depth to play with. Now we're going to plunge this thing in here very carefully, and we're going to take this down so the piece of tape goes to the edge of this, and that should be our depth. And the spacer does serve as a guide to send you in there. That first one felt like a lot more drilling than I was hoping for, so I'm going to try the power one this time. See how it feels. I got my order of operations mixed up a little bit. We weren't supposed to put the roll pins in just yet, but I'm okay because I got the 5 thou little gasket spacer thing in there. So now what we're going to do is pull these bolts out here, and we're going to check the clearance between the gears and the outer bearing cover. Supposed to only use half the plastic gauge to start with, and we can use the other half if we need to adjust it. That'll be about good. It says do not dislodge the plastic gauge. Okay, we'll try not to. Now we can take it off again. Make sure it's in the vise securely. Now we got to use our plastic gauge here, and this is the gauge that you use to measure the mark on the gears. And this is used for doing crank bearings and stuff too. But we took this, we measured, it's supposed to be between 2 thou and 5 thou of clearance. And the ideal is 2 to 4 thou. It's okay to have a little bit more. So I am measuring approximately 4 thou on the drive gear and 5 thou on the idler gear. Since 5 thou is slightly more and the other one is perfectly in spec, I'm going to leave it the way it is. We're going to use this 5 thou spacer that we have on there now, and I will reinstall the way it wants to be. And apparently this is when you would want to install the roll pins if you're doing it in the correct order, but it all worked out. Now I want to pull these out, put assembly lube on them, and then put them back in. I also want to take this outer cover, and wow, you know, those bolts really eat up the cover, and that is a kind of a locking flange on there. The oil pump is together now. I looked at my little oil primer thing and it will not fit in the distributor hole. So I'll have to figure out how to modify that later. We can spin it over, but I think it's gonna work just fine. So we're gonna continue on here. I think we have to put the rear main seal in now. Got a rear main seal here. We can just set that up here and this is the front main seal. I have so many parts waiting, I forgot to buy a rear main seal. So let's work on the oil pump bypass. Remember that little hole we had to drill? Well, it's time to put our stuff back in that. We got our piston first. Then comes the spring. We have a gasket and a plug. I'm gonna push those in and try to, okay, it screws in nice. Sweet. I guess I might catch crap for not showing the oil pump turning on video, so we're gonna try it here. There's a couple tight spots, but it turns by without a whole lot of effort, so I don't know what I would do to change it because it's all up to spec. Without more parts on hand, there's only one more thing I can do here. The stud should probably go back in. It came out on disassembly, but I'll clean this hole out with acetone, throw some Loctite 271 on, which is what we used on the head stud, and this thing should go back in pretty easily. These rear mounting studs are supposed to be 4 9/16 inch out from the face of the engine, so I'm going to measure that right here. It's supposed to be 4.5625. They're a little bit long, so I'm going to check this one. This one's a little bit better. Yeah, they're all a little bit long, so I'm going to set my caliper to where it's supposed to be, and we'll run that into there. These are also supposed to be torqued to a minimum of 5 foot-pounds, which I feel like won't be a major issue with us here. Why is this not wanting to go in? There we go. All right, that's right there. Of course, this thing isn't on for real yet. Unfortunately, that seal here is really stopping me here. So we'll have to pick that up on another episode. I appreciate you watching. Again, this is my first time going this in depth with any engine, and the Corvair engine is a little bit different than most. So I am learning a lot. Thank you for all your comments and feedback. I know that's a lot of people telling me all the things I'm doing wrong, and I appreciate it. But we'll see how it goes. Thanks a lot. Next time, let me know. Do you want to see the shrouds go on this thing, or do you want to see the clutch go on it? Because the clutch kit is in the mail right now from Clark's. Not sure. Does everyone want to see the engine tin go on this thing? Let me know. This episode was sponsored by Clark's Corvair Parts. I'm going to go on Clark's website after I finish this video here and order that rear main seal that I forgot to order. So thank you again for Clark's making so many parts available for an old weird car like this. It's really incredible coming from working on that Saab. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Press on.